Good morning. So welcome to COVID-19 compassionate response in my body. So this morning I'm going to do a bit of body work. Not been doing that much recently, but I thought I'd try and start it up again a bit more. And some meditation, and then I want to look at faith, or in Buddhism, what we call shraddha, well, confidence or trust. How do we, the fact that we actually have to choose between different views about the world, and what we're going to put our money on or invest in our life in. So, I'm going to look at a little bit the philosopher David Hume and Kierkegaard as well. Just say a little bit about them in and around that, and science and religion, those sort of topics. So, but begin by just a bit of body work. So, what should we do? Let's do drumming on your top of your head, and feel the contact of your feet in the ground. Just making your own decision about what you do, how vigorous you are or not, what works for you. So bring awareness to the sensations in your body, where your feet are touching the ground, where your clothing is touching your skin, on the air. Is there any experience of temperature? And is that different in different parts of your body? So we're looking to kind of inhabit the world of sensations. Okay, so just put your hands over your eyes, just cradle your forehead, curve your neck over, turning away from the world. And take some deeper breaths. It's like you don't need to be looking out into the world, responding to it all the time. Sometimes you can just turn inward and just look towards yourself and how you are. What might need to change, or what adjustments might you need to make with yourself? Do you need to let go of any tension? And then just, if you want to, just give your face a little bit of a massage with your hands, a bit of a wash. So we're not doing this for other people, we're doing it for ourselves. Your life, you taking control, or at least some of the time. Just start to get into the clefts in your, around your eyes and nose. Maybe massage your temples a little bit. Dig your fingers into kind of dips in your face. We're just trying to wake ourselves up a little bit, wake our body up after sleeping. And shake your hands out. Shake your shoulders up and down. Take some deeper breaths. Then just going over the top, try to get on top of your shoulder and top of your spine. The other side. And down outside of your arms, off the back of your hand, a bit painful if you can. And then up your inside of your arm, palms of your hands. The side. Back of your hand. Palms. And up inside. Chest. Sides. And then circles on your stomach. Clockwise. And drumming on your kidneys at the back. And then on the buttocks, a bit heavier. And the backs of your legs. And down your legs as far as you can go. Shake your hands out, feet. So hopefully if you're working your energy and your body up a little bit, but if you were just to leave it like that, you feel a little bit overstimulated. So it's good to do something that connects the body together and smooths out the energy in the body. So just putting your hands on your stomach and just waiting for your breathing to calm down. And then as you're breathing out, just bend your knees. As you breathe in, straighten your knees. So you're taking your body down on the out breath and up on the in breath. If you're not moving at all, probably you're a bit stuck in your head and ideas. So put those to one side and just bend your knees. Take your body down and bring it back up again. And then put your hands out the front, so you're bringing them up to your chin on the in-breath, turning and then take them down on the out-breath, and turning at the hips again, up on the in-breath, and down on the out-breath. on the in-breath, and then down on the out-breath. And then next time, just keep going past your chin and up into the air, out to the sides. Again, up the middle. And just one last time, but slowly. And just standing. And being aware of your body, be aware of the air on your hands, clothing touching your body, how that feels. Any sounds you can hear or inside the room, outside the room. So taking your time. And in your own time, just setting yourself up in the meditation posture. All right, so this morning we're just going to do the mindfulness and breathing practice for about 20 minutes in the traditional 4 stages. So settling into this new position that your body's in. And tuning into how you're feeling at the moment. And then taking your attention onto your breathing. And it's watching your breath come and go. So breathing in, first stage, you breathe in, breathe out. And then silently count 1 in your head. Then breathe in, breathe out, count 2. and so on until you get to 10. And then breathe in, breathe out, count 1, and then 2, and so on. So you count in sets of 10 breaths. And if you get lost or can't remember what number you're on, just follow the next breath coming in, coming out, then count 1 again. So mindfulness of breathing. Just trying to be aware of your breath as it actually is, so you're not kind of tensing up around it or changing it in any way. It's almost like you have to kind of get yourself out of the way a little bit so that you can actually be aware of what's there in each moment. The rising and falling of your shoulders and your abdomen. Counting at the end of the out breath. And now in the second stage, you just keep being aware of your breath as it comes and goes. As it actually is. But marking the beginning of the breath with a count, same counting, 1 to 10. Now in the third stage, just carry on watching your breath as it actually is, without changing it in any way. So give it enough space so that you're not tensing up around it. And you don't need to be counting now, just watching the breath without any counting. The rising and falling of your shoulders, expanding and contracting of your rib cage, sensation of the air in your throat, on your lips. One moment at a time. So now in the final stage, taking your attention to places where the air first enters the body, and then around the nose and mouth. And trying to stay with the sensations at that place as the air brushes past the mouth or the lips, mouth or nose. So these are more delicate sensations. So we might need to refine our awareness a little bit more to stay with them. So whatever's going on, try and include it in the meditation with the breath, with our feelings, with your body. Okay. Oh, I feel a bit calmer after that. Yeah, so these sessions at the moment, they're a bit kind of like not as thoroughly prepared as ones I've done before when I was in flow things, doing 100 sessions. But I am kind of working towards doing some discussions online on Zoom with older members and others. And in a way, that's kind of a bit more the focus at the moment. Yeah, no, I think there is something to, well, what occurred to me this morning was that it'd be quite good to talk about faith, and how, you know, how that relates to various kind of philosophers that have been in the Western tradition. So I've got this book here, An Introduction to Western Philosophy, by Anthony Flew. And yeah, so I remember going up to Dana Retreat Centre, might have been like about 2 years ago or something, and in January, and I went a bit early and had a kind of look around Edinburgh, which is on the way, you know, and on the south side of the river, it's a bit more the kind of main sort of shopping kind of drag. There's a statue of the philosopher David Hume. It's one of those ones where he's sitting in a chair and his foot's. What struck me was his foot sort of sticking out beyond the plinth, and then it's just been polished by people rubbing against it and stuff. So David Hume was in a way the kind of the sort of father of like empiricism. So and in a way, sort of his philosophy really kind of supported science, and what he focused on was like experience, and so you know, I read this paper that said that he might have actually come into contact with Buddhism in France. So you used to get the Jesuit order in Christianity would often go out and to different countries in the East and around the world, and they'd get involved in they were great educators. So, you know, they would sort of try and find out about the different cultures and then report back to headquarters and stuff, share the knowledge and all that sort of thing. So there was a Jesuit father who spent a lot of time in, I can't remember whether it was Burma or Tibet, one of the two, and he came back and he went to this college in, I think it's near somewhere in central France, called Le Flèche College, and apparently David Hume was there about the same time. So it might be that some of his ideas were kind of influenced by Buddhism. So one of his ideas was that it's not reason that really guides us, it's emotions, you know. And we kind of all know this in experience, don't we? You know, it's like we might want to give up smoking or something like that, but we can't, you know, because our emotions don't want us to, or we're afraid of how life might be if we don't have that kind of prop and stuff. So yeah, so he focused on emotion. He believed in emotion rather than reason as the main driver in life. But it's interesting that he his focus was on what you could observe. So this is empiricism, so in a way he kind of almost kind of had a pure like view of like the only thing that's important is what you can observe. Everything else is irrelevant, including kind of in a way reason sort of thing. So I'll just read a bit of Hume. So it's a little bit complicated, this bit, but anyway. Whatever is may not be. No negation of a fact can involve a contradiction. The non-existence of any being without exception is as clear and distinct as an idea as its existence. So basically he's saying that something exists is a clear idea, something doesn't exist is a clear idea. So they're both conceivable. Something exists or doesn't exist. But it's different with the sciences. So every proposition which is not true is in science is confused and unintelligible. So that the cube root of 64 is equal to the half of 10 is a false proposition and can never be distinctly conceived. So he's saying that with the sciences, it's unintelligible. If something is false, it's unintelligible. And he says, but that Caesar or the angel Gabriel or any being never existed may be false, but it's still perfectly conceivable. So basically he's saying that things that aren't scientific may be false, but they're still conceivable. If he goes on, the existence, therefore, of any being can only be proved by arguments from its cause or its effects. And these arguments are founded entirely on experience. So he had a kind of like a critique of causality, saying that we might think that we see causality in things, but he says the falling of a pebble may, for aught we know, extinguish the sun, or the wish of a man to control the planets in their orbits. It is only experience that teaches us the nature and bounds of cause and effect. So we might see sort of two things happen at the same time, like a pebble might fall and the sun might go out. How that's going to happen, I don't know. We might infer that the one's caused the other. So it's like, it's like he's sort of saying that we can get kind of lost in our kind of trying to work out how things work, how one thing leads to another, and it's not that he believes that unless you look at everything in terms of experience, and in a way this is the basis of science, you sort of like looking at, you're measuring things and you measure them again, and and you repeat your experiments, and you find out that it still is the same thing. So you're building up a kind of objective ground for things, are believable, scientifically verifiable world, and other things that aren't like that don't come from that aren't scientific. He says it's not. You can't really say that one thing causes another. It's really important, this bit. And he goes on to say, when we run over libraries, if persuaded of these principles, what havoc must we make? If we take in our hand any volume of divinity or school metaphysics, for instance, let us ask, does it contain any abstract reasoning concerning quantity or number? No. Does it contain any experimental reasoning concerning the matter of fact and existence? No. Commit it then to the flames, for it can contain nothing but sophistry and illusion. So what he's saying is, like, anything that's not scientifically verifiable, you should chuck it in the bin. This is quite an extreme position. So also what's implied here, and this is where Buddhism comes in. Buddhism is saying actions have consequences. This being, that becomes. So we don't have causality. We have conditionality. This condition being in existence, something else that becomes. So in an ethical realm, if we do one thing, it causes suffering. If we do something else, it causes happiness. Now, Hume can't allow this, really. He can't allow a law of conditionality. He can't allow an ethical universe, in a way, that where we think, our actions have consequences, because he's sort of saying, well, how can you know that? How can you be certain about that if you can't kind of like prove it experimentally, So in a way, this is where faith comes in, and Kierkegaard comes in. So Kierkegaard, there we are, 50 Key Thinkers on Religion. Gary E. Kessler. So I'll just say a little bit about the philosopher Soren Kierkegaard. So he was a Danish philosopher that lived 1813 to 1855. So he died quite young, 42. And his main concern was that he was a Christian, but what he felt was that a lot of people in everything in those days in Europe, it's all Christian, one form or another of Christianity. So, he felt concerned that people were kind of like going through the motions, so they go to church and everything and all that, but he wondered how much they were actually kind of practicing it in their hearts, or had sort of, in a way, like real faith. So his concern was to find out, well, what is, what is real faith? How do you get to real faith? Yeah, and so he focused. So where Hume, in a way, focused on like what we could call objectivity, scientific objectivity. What Kierkegaard focused on was subjectivity. So he was concerned for the subject and their experience. So one of his books was called Either Or, 1843. So in that he explains two forms or stages of human existence that he calls the aesthetic and the ethical. So basically, the aesthetic is where what you're interested in is pleasure of some form or another, and it can be of different types. So you can have the pleasure that's like sensory pleasure. So in this here, it talks about Don Juan. Don Juan's a great seducer. So it's like concern for sensation and sensory pleasure. You've got the pleasure of like knowledge, so you kind of know, the satisfaction that you understand something, So here it talks about the doubt. So the pain of not knowing something. Here is in this book, this passage, it's associated with Faust, who had this doubt. And then you've got like hope, the pleasure of hope, or the despair of no hope. So Kierkegaard was very influential on the whole of continental philosophy, with people like Heidegger and Jean-Paul Sartre, French continental philosophy, existentialism and phenomenology and all sorts of stuff. So often with phenomenology and existentialism, it's like the focus is on, well, what can you say about experience, if you don't theorize about it, so if you just say, from the phenomena that you're experiencing, looking outwards from you out into the world, what can you say about it? So Heidegger said, well, all you can say is that you just hear as if you've been thrown here. You can't theorize about how you got here, but you just hear. And then what do you do in that situation? Well, he said, well, you need to care for yourself or care for your experience. And he had quite a critique of technology, which is sort of taking us away from ourselves and giving us this sort of sense that we don't have to, we can escape from this direct experience of life, where we have to deal with what's in front of us. And he thought that a lot of life was, the important things in life were all kind of orientated towards our attitude towards death, and kind of facing up to the limitations of life rather than trying to solve it all with technology. So you've got these two strands. You've got like Hume with science and technology and all that, and then you've got Kierkegaard and Heidegger with experience. How do you face life? Existentialism. How do you face life and deal with it? The existential problems of it. What the Buddha addressed. So Kierkegaard is talking about the aesthetic and the ethical. So it says that the chief characteristics of this aesthetic way of life, which doesn't mean aesthetic in the way that we with art and stuff. It means more to do with pleasure, I think. The chief characteristics of these ways of living are detachment, experimentation, lack of involvement, and the inability to make a lasting commitment. So, so we're committed in a way to trying to get the most pleasure out of life, rather than being committed to some kind of abstract ideal or to people, like involvement in our in a deeper way in our own life and others' lives. And it's all a bit detached, and it's interesting. Well, not interesting. I found it a bit horrifying, actually. I watched. Somebody suggested watching a Netflix series called The Boys, which is it's a kind of a sort of debunking of the kind of superheroes, Marvel comics and all that sort of thing. So in it, you get these like superheroes that are that are portrayed as kind of like just ugly people. They're just ugly, ethically in a way. In a way, they're kind of ethically kind of corrupt and ugly, and actually, there's a lot of graphic violence, where people just get splattered all over the road or whatever, And I found it kind of, even though it's almost like a kind of critique of a sort of maybe a bit of a fantasy world of idealism, the way that it was done, it's just like, it's not edifying. I didn't find it edifying at all. I found it depressing. So it's almost like, I think that's what happens often in like materialist society. You end up with the only thing that the view that, in a way, we just have the pleasures in life and we've got to make the best out of ourselves. Maybe the superhero on some level used to be more kind of, they represented some ethical thing, like Superman or whatever, but it seems like more they just represent power, and running around the universe, able to do what the hell they like, sort of thing, But anyway, it's like this Boys series didn't seem to replace a false view of superheroes or whatever with something edifying and like human, and it just replaced it with something that's the same, really, with a kind of a insensitive, unsubtle, kind of load of visuals, that, like, what's it, Morrissey from the Smiths, doesn't say anything about my life, that sort of thing. Anyway, so it's a bit of a diversion there. So even though the aesthete lives a life in the pursuit of satisfaction, it is ultimately, so this is Kierkegaard's ideas, an unhappy life. The person trapped in the pursuit of sensual pleasure lacks moral will and finds himself or herself the victim of the pleasurable moment. Such people ultimately despair of ever being free from seeking pleasure. Fantastic book, this, really great. The person trapped in doubt is constantly seeking the truth, but despairs of ever finding it. That's Faust. The absence of hope is the chief characteristic of the despairing individual. This sort of despair can lead to either spiritual death or an awakening to higher possibilities. So it's like, you can, out of like suppose like it can go two ways, really. If you don't have contact with something, when you're in a state of despair, you're thinking, what else? What is there? Maybe that's something like that Sartre focuses on. I remember reading Nausea when I was about 18 or something, and it was really like really depressing. The people in it were just like these people, like, well, why shouldn't I kill myself? That sort of thing. So if you don't have a creative alternative, to like materialism, I think it's quite dangerous. I think maybe that's what Nietzsche was saying. It's quite dangerous. You just sort of despair. So that despair is telling us that human beings, crave meaning and crave satisfaction and crave life to mean something. And maybe like we do see through pleasure as through sort of material in some way. We do see the limitations of pleasures and a world built on pleasure. Even if we're into that. We all sort of have this sense that there must be more to life than this. Okay, so the next higher possibility for living after the aesthetic is the ethical. I don't know if either. I've not read it. I've bought it, but I've not read it yet. I don't know if either or refers to the aesthetic, and either the aesthetic or the ethical. The route to this higher way of existing, the ethical, is neither necessary nor inevitable. So it's like, and in a way, we have to be in certain conditions. We have to come into contact with something that's ethical, that actually appeals to us. If we're gonna move towards it, it's not inevitable that we do that. Since despair is a sickness unto death, one either dies without hope or one awakens the possibility of the ethical life. That the movement from the aesthetic to the ethical mode of existence is more like a leap made in the depths of despair than a logical transition. So Kierkegaard focused on the subjective, and remember my old physics teacher, Jock Marsden, used to say, "You pays your money and you takes your choice." So in a way, we're all faced with this same thing of like, when it comes to our belief system, this is what we do. We pay our money, we take our choice. We choose Islam, or we choose Buddhism, or we choose atheism, or we choose Christianity, or whatever it is. And there's no, and that's the end of it. It's like, and then we kind of like live by the consequences of that. So, if I've chosen Buddhism, then, and I'm practicing Buddhism, and then my life will work out in a particular way. Somebody else who chooses like materialism, their life will work out in a particular way. In terms of the four foundations of mindfulness, views, dharmas, condition, chitta, emotions, action, in a way, activity of the mind. So, what we dwell on, we become. What we believe is the case, and we will act on. So if we think that material things will give us life satisfaction, then that's what we'll pursue. And if we believe that an ethical Buddhist ethical precepts will lead to happiness for ourselves and others. That's what we'll pursue. So he pays your money and he takes your choice. So Buddhism talks about dukkha, or suffering, being the beginning of the spiritual path. And so the Buddha sort of started, or Buddha to be, Gautama, started out, and he had a problem of like thinking that, well, what's going to happen to me and others because of old age, sickness, and death. So that was his despair. His like insoluble problem. I can make the best out of life, but I'm going to get sick, or die. And die. So it's only when we actually have a problem, like we have this sort of despair, that we make this transition in a way, probably, to the ethical. So the ethical is like our chosen solution to the despair, that sort of dukkha, that suffering. For Kierkegaard, choosing oneself means choosing passionately and in an unconditional way. To accept the demand of the ethical on one's life requires an absolute commitment to transforming oneself into someone who is willing to submit to the universal demand of morality. The life of immediacy that characterizes aesthetic experience is replaced by a life of discipline and vocation. This choice gives a person a sense of inner coherence and a calling to a life larger than self-gratification. Kierkegaard was more interested in the nature of moral commitment than he was in the rules of some moral system or a theory of ethics that would produce guidance in making day-to-day moral decisions. So he was more interested in this personal, subjective response, than some externally imposed like religion, So this is like the Buddha's instruction to the Kalamas. He said, when asked how should you choose between different paths and things, different teachers and stuff, he said, well, you need to judge for yourself. Does this lead to So just to kind of wind up, I think that Kierkegaard goes on to talk about like the religious as the third element, the third responses to human existence. So that's in a way he then goes on to bring in this sort of kind of reliance on kind of a higher power or something like that. Maybe some like a exemplar. So we have a sort of our own ethic, our own response to ethics, but then we need to have exemplars that are there to kind of guide us and show the way and show us what the final kind of outcome looks like, and then we can have some sort of faith and devotion in, or express faith and devotion in those figures, the big Buddhas and Bodhisattvas in Buddhism. But first of all, you got to have got to sort of be making this decision. So yeah, so the theme is about confidence. So the Buddhist word for faith is shraddha, and it's often translated more accurately as confidence. So it's like we have confidence in something, or So what do we have? Well, what do we have confidence in? Do we have it in materialism? Do we have it in Buddhism? Do we have it in Christianity? And then it means to shraddha means to place the heart upon. So it's like coming back to Hume. It's like the important thing is our emotions determine everything, really, not our reason. So it's what we put our heart on is what determines, what the outcome's going to be. What we pull a person into is going to be the thing that really works or doesn't work for us. So I think that's probably it for today. So I hope you managed to put your heart into something today that's going to be wholesome and ethical and lead to happiness for yourself and for others. And I wish you well in all of that. Okay. Thanks for today.